Hello, I just finished watching part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, and when I say just finished, I really do mean that. So I don't have a lot of notes on this, other than just I'm looking at my Discord reactions, because on my Patreon, after I finish an episode, I come onto the Discord and talk about that episode, so I have that to refer to, and then just my very frazzled, excited feelings after watching the finale. So I did already talk about part 1. I already talked about the first half of part 3 a few weeks ago, so I'm just gonna build on that video. I've already talked about some of the characters, I've already talked about how I feel about this new stand system and about the setup of this arc, so I'm not gonna be repeating those things. I'm gonna continue on in this video with the expectation that you already know my ground-laying thoughts, and we're just going to talk about the final section of this story, which was so great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a few episodes that really stood out to me leading up to the finale, then we're going to talk about those final 4 episodes and gush about them, and then I want to talk about the characters and where they resolved and kind of talk about the arc as a whole and where I'm left with all of this. There were so many excellent episodes leading up to the finale of this season. Really, really creative stands that force the characters to work together, willingly or not, and to think creatively in order to get out of each situation. I'm gonna be real honest with you, I did not like Iggy at the start, and I was really comfortable with that. I'm very okay with my stance on Iggy is a brat, he's annoying, and he could use a swift kick. You can come at me if you want, I'm fine with that. I stand by it. And honestly, I was a little bit irritated when the show forced me to develop an affection for this daggone dog. And as much as you will never win me over with potty humor or fart jokes, Iggy. I did enjoy Iggy for the sake of the creative new stand that he offered and the friction, because I love the dynamic of our 5 characters. I love how they work together and how they trust each other and how they rely on one another to be able to defeat certain foes. Like, they have to have an immense amount of understanding of how the other one will respond and trust that the other one can have their back. And adding in a dynamic of someone who does not care in the slightest about them, but is forced to travel with them. And so they kind of have to make him cooperate in Iggy. It added to the dynamic despite me thinking, you know, we could punt the dog. So the water stand user was a great episode for the team dynamics and for the creative thinking that was required, as well as for making Iggy work within the new dynamics. And then we had a couple of really great episodes, a couple that I really didn't like, but the next episode that really stood out to me was when we were introduced to Darby. Something that I love about Jotaro especially is with him being a more quiet character and one that doesn't really emote or express himself or talk out how he's feeling or what he's thinking. He usually just sort of stands back and is quiet. He lets Joseph kind of run the show as far as decisions made and leading, lets Avdol be the master, so to speak, the one that kind of understands stands and explains things to people and knows cultures better and knows their enemies better. He's the rock of the group, the one that's done his research, been in the field, and knows their enemy. He's the one that has been pursuing this quest for a while just because it's the right thing to do, because he knows what's right. Other people have external motivations, and Avdol is the one that kind of is the steady, experienced one next to Joseph, the leader. I'm supposed to be talking about Jotaro, sorry. Jotaro, he stands back, he lets others lead, and a lot of times he just hangs back, doesn't try to rush through things, doesn't try to push forward constantly, and then once he's observed a situation and he understands what's going on, then he can usually kind of just strike and handle things. A lot of times he does rely on other people, but he tends to be this slow, steady, not fast mover or fast reactor, and then and then has a deeper understanding of the situation and what the best strategic move is going forward. So because of all of those things, he's the perfect match against Darby. Really both the Darbys, but he's the perfect match against Darby, the older. I just realized I've been calling him Darby, and his name is Darby. Sorry about that. He's the perfect match against Darby because he'll sit back and he'll watch and he'll assess, and the matches against him and his desire to collect souls and cheat in order to do so by whatever means necessary, he was a great match because he was able to really assess the situation, ended up psyching out Darby with his calm demeanor and his assurance no matter what. So here Jotaro is playing his hand without looking at it, being sure that he's gonna win, raising the stakes and getting in Darby's head, only to find out that he had a terrible hand. And his reaction at the end where he was just like, oh man, if I had realized what cards I had, I would have been sweating. I would have been freaking out. It's like, it was such a great battle that was a battle of the minds only. And I like Darby's younger brother. I like the younger Darby even more. But before we get to that, I want to talk about one more episode that I really loved, or two more episodes, I guess, but they were paired together, that I really loved before we got to the mansion, and that's with the Icicle Falcon. Having a falcon with ice powers that's ruthless be the guard to Dio's mansion is such a good call. And having the begrudging ally of the dog, not even really ally, he does not care about them. Having him be the one that goes up against the falcon, and not even because he had a revelation of, oh, all this time I've cared about them. It's not even that. It's for this kid that wasn't even in the show before this, but because this kid has loyalty and love for his two dogs, Iggy has loyalty and love for this kid and doesn't want to see him get torn apart by the falcon and eaten by the falcon as well, just like, you know, the two dogs were. He has a soft spot for children that are loyal to their dogs, and he cares, just genuinely cares about some stranger off the street, and that's what makes him fight. And there's something really compelling about that. It's like, the turnaround for Iggy, I was destined to hate. I was destined to stay in my box because I was really comfortable hating him. And the fact that the show didn't go, or the series I should say, didn't go the easy route of him developing a bond with our crew, with our group slowly, but instead his loyalty was to this child, and his arc began outside of our group, was just, for some reason, it just struck me just right. The fights with the Falcon were incredible, and again, ruthless. The series does not hold back its punches in how it harms the characters at all. And Iggy choosing to work with the group is more due to a desire for revenge, but that begins his arc, his very short arc of actually really being loyal to Polnareff in the end. So too, I love that to get into the mansion, we had to go through a series of stand users that were the defense leading up to Dio. I wish there was more. I would have loved to have cut some of the more mid episodes, because this is a long season, and there were times where the season felt a little bit like it dragged when we had several just kind of okay episodes back to back. I would have loved to really keep the standout episodes and instead extend the Dio stuff. So I love the Falcon. I love younger brother Darby, who greeted them as, oh my goodness, they step into the mansion and then the creepy music plays and then he comes up and he's like, okay, I'm the butler. Here we go. And he sucks them into the black hole, and they have to face off again. And once again, it's not your traditional stand battle. It's a battle of strategy. This time playing video games of all things. And once again, he's a soul collector, but this time it's instead of putting them, isolating the, or containing them in coins, he's putting them in puppets, but they're puppets that are tortured. They're puppets that are alone, shut up in a cupboard, isolated, seemingly going mad because of that isolation, because of that being stowed away. Like, it's horrible. Ugh, it's terrifying. So he wants their souls too. He's a soul collector as well, and he'd like to play the same games, but he doesn't cheat like his brother. But he has great strategy. So I'm like cracking up as Kakyoin, which, by the way, oh my goodness, I forgot to mention, Kakyoin at one point lost his eyesight and was just out of the series for a long stretch. And that was terrible because I love Kakyoin and I didn't want him out of the series. He's a character that I enjoy his dynamic with the rest of the group, and I felt like I was missing something by losing him, but I also really love that an injury can take a character out like that for such a long stretch of time. Abdal as well, we lost him for a long stretch of time, and I'll talk about more of that in a minute. But anyway, Kakyoin fights him not by racing, you know, like you might think, like most series might do, but instead as a video game race. But it was amazing because it required so much strategy. It showed that Kakyoin knew what he was doing, and he was able to play really, really well with the help of Hierophant Green. It was a great battle, and with both of the Derby battles, it takes what seems like mundane things, like trying to drop coins in a cup of whiskey without it tumbling over, or playing video games against each other, and it makes it really intense. But Kakyoin loses his soul, and then Jotaro is the next one to volunteer to play. And again, see, this is what I love. This is what, to me, makes a episodes stand out versus being just kind of like okay. And it's the ones that require the characters to rely on one another and to use intense strategy. There are some episodes that, like, I thought the sword episode was really interesting, and there was a lot that I enjoyed about it, but I don't feel compelled to talk about it a ton with you because the episodes to me that don't stand out as much are the ones that conclude through coincidence, right? Like the sword then possessed a child, and then the child was ready to attack them at 2, and then Iggy went running out in the middle of the street to pick up a lollipop, and then the kid tripped, and then the sword went flying, and then it landed, well, in a cow, and then the cow landed in the Nile, and then the Nile. So it was just like a series of coincidences that concluded the battle, and I'm fine with that here and there, but there were enough episodes that ended in coincidence that those episodes didn't stand out to me as a really satisfying victory, like the ones that required teamwork and strategy and creative thinking, like this episode does. So Jotaro sits down and Joseph's like, no, you should not be the next one doing this. Don't do it. Jotaro is like, old man, you don't know how to play video games. Let the kid sit down. And then he starts playing and he's just awful. Like, it's just so bad. And he's just like, I'll figure it out. No problem. Kind of like the poker game where he's like, no strategy, just confidence, right? So Jotaro sits down and he's playing the game and he's doing terribly, but then all of a sudden he does better. And the reason is because he signaled to his granddad, I need your help. Like, I need us to work together in order to fix this. And again, it requires them having an understanding of each other to be able to pull these things off. They need to have an understanding and trust with one another to be able to rely on each other on this level. So the fact that, man, this whole episode was amazing, between the way I watched the sub, between the way they speak a lot of the video game stuff in English, and when Darby is reading Jotaro's mind, and it's like the yes. I love it so much. But he's reading Jotaro's mind, and the whole time I'm thinking what Jotaro is doing is he's thinking what he's gonna do and planning to do it, like with all of his soul. He's like, this is my game plan, and then the very last second he completely shifts his plan, and that's what he's doing to trick this guy out. But in fact, he's working with with his granddad. Joseph he's using his hermit purple to control the controller, and the whole time Darby, who thinks he's playing against Jotaro, is reading Jotaro's mind, but Jotaro is not the one, or his soul. He's not the one in control. Oh my goodness, that reveal was brilliant. It got me so excited. It was such a fun reveal. And then at the end, when the guy is begging on his knees, he's like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, have mercy on me. And Jotaro tells him, go ahead, read my mind. What am I gonna hit you with? And he guesses your right arm, your left arm, but we all know the answer. And then we get the oh, I just really love it. Okay, next villain we got was Vanilla Ice, and in this section, I had so much emotional investment in what was going on with our group. First of all, I lost Avdol again. This time for real. This time the narrator's voice went from explaining the ways that people are being defeated to actually declaring their deaths. Avdol died in this section, and I don't want it. He was genuinely just for the cause. He just believed in taking down Dio, and I didn't want it. But it was such an emotional death, and Polnareff's reaction, I think that the series does such a great job of showing the grieving when someone loses someone. And this is the second time Polnareff has had to watch his friend die. The first time, didn't really happen. But the first time it was his fault, and now here he is watching it happen again. And I thought I lost Polnareff as well. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You can't keep just killing them off left and right. But it was Iggy, but Iggy saved him, brought him up to the ceiling, and the fact that Iggy's final act was to save Polnareff, the fact that it was the soul's manifestation, his soul's manifestation in the stand as he's weak and he's dying, and he's been beaten so badly. Oh my goodness. I mean, Vanilla Ice not only knocked him across the room, but kicked him until he was near dead. And his last act was to save Polnareff. And then here we have Polnareff hanging from the ceiling telling him, I told you not to save me. I told you not to do this. And it was, but he smiled. Iggy daggone smiled because he was satisfied that that was what he got to do as his last thing. It was beautiful. Oh my goodness. And then Polnareff, first of all, the stand circling the room the way it did, getting closer and closer, was such a great visual. But then how it ended with Polnareff just from behind sending his stand to cut through him and push him into the sunlight, and then he burst. Oh, it was great. Oh, it was so good. Okay, final episodes. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been looking forward to getting to. So the final 4 episodes were some of the greatest season finale episodes I've ever seen. Dio is back, and he's better than ever. And first of all, Dio, before we understand his stand, and he's just going around the sound effect and the way he shouts out his stand name as he uses it and distorts reality is how I interpreted it at first, with going up the stairs and then appearing at the bottom of the stairs, or trying to jump out the car and then you're back in the car. And it's like he could make the world glitch, and he could force people to be where he wanted them to be, interrupt reality. Oh my goodness, it was so cool. Okay, the fight between Kakyoin, Joseph, Jotaro versus Dio was so good. First of all, Kakyoin using Hydrophant Green to create this web system that trapped Dio, and if he moved it all, then the web, if he moved it all and touched the web, then the web would pick it up and he would be able to detect. And this is how he's figuring out what exactly Dio's stand does, so that he can know. Again, it's the strategy. It's the strategy that makes these characters such amazing stand users, because they're not just fighting with force and might. They're thinking through the situation, and they have to come up with the most creative ways to sort through how to deal with each stand. And that's what's great, is the stand system isn't just the most powerful stand wins. It's each stand has its own powers, and so you have to think through what can I do to use my unique powers to override that unique power. But strength and might is not even half the battle. It's all about how you use it, which I talked about in the last video too, but my goodness, Kakyoin using Hierophant Green in this way was so smart. He still died. He was still attacked, somehow hurt so badly that he's just laying there with this gaping wound, thinking about his family, thinking about his past and how he was always isolated and how he never had any friends. He never had a place in life, thinking about how his parents are probably in bed right now. In Japan, it's probably midnight and they're probably in bed right now. They've probably been worried about him, wondering, how he's doing, sorry that he's made them worried, but also grateful that he did finally find family. He did finally find people who understood him, that he could trust, that he had a family bond with. He got his family through this group of people. And these are the things that he's thinking about at the end. But the thing is, Kakyoin did succeed in this fight. He was able to accomplish exactly what he needed to, because not only did he figure out what Dio's stand was, but he was able to communicate it to Joseph in the most creative way by using Hierophant Green to shoot off one last shot, even though he was near dead, even though he barely had any strength left in him. It took everything in him to shoot off this final shot, and it looked like a miss, but it hit the clock. And Joseph, again, because they understand each other, because they have such a close bond, because they are family, he knows that there's no way Kakyoin would waste his last shot. He would not miss it. There was a message behind this. And so then he finally was able to put together what exactly happened. I loved that after all this happened, the show then showed it to us in real time. It backed up and showed us Dio stopping time and going up to Kakyoin and delivering that blow. Oh, it was so good. Kakyoin's moments were so impactful, very emotional, but also felt like your sacrifice was worth it. And then at the same time, Dio, who's been built up all this time, this entire season, it's been like, okay, we're all working towards Dio. We're all trying to serve Dio. And it's like, I mean, I know I'm going to be happy to see him again, but also show you're building him up a lot. So everyone who's not Murphy, everyone who's not like unhinged, obsessed with Dio is probably going to be disappointed by whatever you deliver. No! What they delivered was amazing. This stand ability is visually so cool. Unbelievably powerful, and in the hands of a psychopath like Dio, it's terrifying. Terrifying to consider being in a world where Dio can stop time. Oh my goodness, it's so good. The scene when he's walking through after he stopped time, when he was chasing Joseph, and then Jotaro showed up, and Joseph's like, oh no, oh no, go away. And Dio stops time, and he comes down, and he is like, just destroying these people's lives for no good reason other than just the desire for evil and chaos. And then setting up the knife to go through Joseph's neck and then standing in front of Jotaro. Oh, what a scene. Do you know how cool it is when he screams out, WARUDO! And then you get the sound effects and the visuals that come along with it. It was so amazing. And then the fact that Jotaro could move, that he wasn't completely bound by time either because he has the matching stand. I don't know, there's so many scenes that I want to talk about in these final episodes that were just so incredible. But first, let me talk about the opening song, because the opening song is not my favorite of all the opening songs. It's fine. I don't mind it. It's okay. But now that I see Dio and I understand all of the visuals about time moving and clocks, and it feels like you have all the gears and everything just laying in the sand, and you see them going up the stairs and like all of these things that have so much more heavy meaning now that we're at the end. But the fact that the OP changed, the fact that it's the same song every single time until these final 2 episodes where we get to the big part of the opening song, the best part of the opening song, and then it stops, and then Dio's there. One of my patrons, when I was talking about the opening, brought up that it feels like Dio was there the entire time. We just weren't in the perspective of Dio. But now that he's on the scene, we're seeing, I was here. I was just behind my stand. You couldn't see me because I had stopped time. But I'm here, baby, and let's fight. And it was so good. Oh my goodness. But also, like, oh my goodness, so many funny things. Like, Dio being thrown into that one shopkeeper's shop, and he's got this gaping hole in his gut. His leg has been blown off, and he's just like, "Oi, woman, bring me my leg." It's like, imagine being that woman, and then she's dead. So, and then too, also that Jotaro got thrown into a bookshop, and then he like stuffed his clothes with magazines just in case he gets hit by stuff, he could have extra padding. Smart move. Cool. Like, it's just so funny. Polnareff showed up at one point and saved Jotaro's life, and also got very badly injured in the process. We had a police officer show up, and Dio forced him to shoot Jotaro, which, you know, back at the beginning of the season, we started with a conflict with a police officer. Also, at the very beginning of the season, Jotaro in his prison cell set up that Star Platinum can stop a bullet in a second. Like, he can control, he can move so fast that a gun can shoot really close to his head and Star Platinum can stop that bullet. So here we are once again back with a police officer attacking Jotaro, this time because of Dio. He's forcing it to happen. And it looks like the shot went through, but then we switch perspectives and we see that Star Platinum caught the bullet. And Star Platinum also had to stop Jotaro's heart and then start it back up again. That hurt. That scene hurt me to watch because I cannot imagine how painful that is. I get heart palpitations, and that's very uncomfortable. I can't imagine actually having to have your heart stopped for like 30 seconds probably. That was bad. But among many scenes that I loved in these final episodes, one of my favorite scenes is easily when Dio is about to chop Jotaro's head off. And again, perspective, from where we're seeing things, it looks like he actually succeeds, only to see that he was moved and that Star Platinum is there to bash his skull in. Seeing these two people, and Jotaro doesn't have as much experience working with his stand in this way, but seeing these two people that are able to manipulate time like this, and I, the common man, am just watching along 3 steps behind them, and so I'm constantly seeing things happen, perceiving it one way, and then we change perspective just a little bit, and then I see what truly happened. Oh, amazing. Another scene that I really, really loved was when Jotaro was laying in the street and then Dio just shows up from the sky with a friggin' cement truck and just like pounds Jotaro with it. It was the most bizarre nonsense that I have ever seen. And I actually just had to pause the show for a second to laugh because I couldn't hear what was happening anymore because I was cracking up so hard. I know I need to calm down a little bit, and I'm really sorry, but I'm just like, these episodes, I could not contain myself. They were so much fun. The scene where Dio's running away and he opens up the manhole and Jotaro is in there and he comes out and he's like floating with his flames, and oh, it was so cool. Dio did end up drinking Joseph's blood. Killed him. Narrator's voice announced it and everything. And then Dio was that much more powerful. And the scene, oh my goodness, cried. So stupid. I cried over when Joseph's cloud, his soul, floated out of him and he gave that last message to Jotaro, telling him, like, don't be hot-headed, don't let your anger, what Dio is about to do to my body when he drinks his blood, what Dio's about to do to my body, like, don't be impulsive, think, giving him this advice, which Jotaro, doesn't do, and telling him that in all of his life, these last, 50 days, the time that he's spent with his grandson has been the best of his life. Like, What are you doing? Again, the death scenes in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, they hit. They just like, they get the emotions, the pain, the loss, the grieving, but also like the beauty of, but I got to spend my last days with you. Ah. Wow. The final battle between these two was incredible. On the edge of my seat, freaking out, loved every second of it. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm sad. I'm sad. Dio, you were a good one. You deserved better. You should have lived longer. You deserved at least 3 more seasons. You shouldn't have had to go out like that. I'm just saying. I mean, I loved the fight. I love Jotaro. He's my favorite JoJo. I stand on that, and I'll probably stay that way. I can't imagine someone passing Jotaro by. But I mean, Dio. Another thing that I loved in the aftermath of everything is, it's so stupid, when Jotaro is in the ambulance with Joseph and Dio, well, Dio's body and Joseph's body, they're both dead, and Jotaro has the great idea of a blood transfusion. Let's give Joseph back his blood, and Star Platinum can restart Joseph's heart. It'll work. It'll totally work. And then Joseph shows back up as Dio. And he's like, I'ma kill ya. So stupid. His grandson, his stoic, brutal, like, he will kill you. Like, what are you? Imagine raising from the dead, and the first thing you do is play a prank. Like, if that's not Joseph, like season 2 Joseph, I don't know what is. But he pops up and pretends to be the guy that Jotaro just slaughtered. And he's like, no, I'm sorry, it's me, it's super duper me. And Jotaro has to ask him a series of really stupid questions, to include songs by Weird Al Yankovic, in order to verify, yep, that's my granddad, no one else would know such stupid facts. Which just proves that they've been traveling together for too long. Such a great conclusion. That's another, my favorite my favorite episode in the first half of part 3 was the Pet Cemetery one, with Polnareff's sister coming back from the dead. She was a fake, but that whole thing, and it was very emotional to me. And then it ended on them saying, oh yeah, no, we knew Avdol was alive this whole time. We just didn't trust you to keep the secret, so we just like lied to you and let you carry that guilt, and also kind of rubbed it in when we first saw Avdol, and we were like, no, he's dead. You did that. And I'm gonna go tell his dad that his son's dead now, and it's your fault you did that. Like, it's crazy. But they ended that really emotional episode, or those episodes, on the funniest gag that really lightened that really heavy material. And the same here, where this was like really heavy, really hype, crazy episodes. Like, I was shaking at the end of it all. I know that sounds dumb, but I don't know. I got really jittery. And then and then you ended on that dumb gag, and it was perfect. It was so great. But also, the series ends on Jotaro and Joseph just standing there under the sunset, looking up at the sky, and it's like, it's over. We're free of this. Like, you know, Holly is released of her sickness, and we get to go home now. And they're looking up, and it's like, and then you see their lost family, in Kakyoin, Avdol, and Iggy, and it's like, we wanted to end it with you, though. You know, like, we wanted to come to this conclusion with the people that we started with. And there was this heaviness and gravity that accompanied their success. And it was just, I think it balanced that relief that it was over, but also the sadness that it was over without everyone so well. And that's reinforced on the plane when Jotaro is looking at the photo of all of them together. And at first he looks sad, and then he smiles and looks out the window. And in a character that's really not very expressive and doesn't emote a lot, doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve, concluding his reflection of his friends with an emotionally expressive scene, I thought was a really beautiful touch. But in the end, you know, I'm feel really satisfied. I feel really happy with their success, but I also feel so sad for them because their characters each went through their own personal arcs over this season. And they also each went through a lot of pain. For Avdol, he just wanted to see Dio be brought down. And he was a big part of doing that, but he didn't get to see it to the end. For Kakyoin, he never had family, and he finally found his family. And he was able to live out his last moments serving them. And he was a big part of making sure that three of them survived. But at the same time, he didn't get to live on with them. He found his family, and then he died. Polnareff, who was looking to avenge his sister who was killed and, violated, and wanting to potentially bring her back to life, wanting to find vengeance for her, who left home because of everything that happened. Now he's found his family and he's found these people that he cares about, but he returns home. And he returns home not with his sister, not with his family, having to be alone again. And there's something distinctly sad about that. I mean, anytime you find people in your life that are like, these are my people, this is my family, and then you have to part ways, that's like breaking off a piece of yourself. And watching Polnareff leave Joseph and Jotaro, I felt that, I felt like, we've already broken off a piece of ourselves 3 times by losing these characters, and now you want to do it again, and needlessly, like, come home with them. They offered for you to come home with them, but I understand his decision. But there's something really, really tragic about what he's had to go through and then having to go home on his own after that. In the beginning of this part, Jotaro and Joseph didn't have a relationship. They didn't know each other. They hadn't spent time together. And Jotaro was like, why should I want you in my life? Who have you been for me for these last 17 years? And now they have a bond that is so deep, and it's really, really beautiful. So I'm glad that they get to go home together. I don't know that Joseph is going to stay there, though. I mean, he lives in America, right? That's like how it all began, is Holly moved to Japan to be with her husband because she married a Japanese man, and then they had Jotaro. So Joseph and Susie, is that his wife's name? They're gonna go home. So it's like another fracturing. Why are we doing this? It was beautiful, honestly. It was very bittersweet, and it was beautiful. The conclusion was exciting and fun, but also very, very tragic. And their stories as a whole, while they were successful and they were exciting and it was so much fun to go on this journey with them, this adventure with them across the world, they also experienced a lot of pain and loss before part 3 began and onward. But also, I think just part 3 did a really good job of unifying the 3 parts. We had Jonathan, who was the first Jojo that we followed. And then we had Joseph that felt like his own story and his own character. And he was almost like the opposite of Jonathan. But then with Dio stealing Jonathan's body and wanting to drink the blood of another Joestar, and Joseph and Jotaro teaming up and developing this incredible bond over time, this really felt like a generational saga, which I know that JoJo's Bizarre Adventures follows a different JoJo each time. Now I know that. I didn't know that when I started the series, but now I know that. And I know that, I assume that it's going to be following the Joestar line, so it's always going to be a descendant. So this is the first time that it truly feels like a generational saga through this family, and brings it all together, and I feel so much more invested in the story from that perspective, from the perspective of through the generations. So I'm sad to say goodbye to Jotaro. I guess I was sad to say goodbye to Joseph, and he played a very heavy role in part 3. So maybe Jotaro will play a role in part 4 as well. But like, Joseph was different in part 3 than he was in part 2, even though he was still himself. He was an older version. He had grown, he had changed, he had matured, kind of, and it was just different. So even if Jotaro sticks around, he's going to be different. which is good. He should grow up and he should learn and he should grow, but I don't know, I'm sad. I feel like I want to talk about this some more. I feel like I want to hang out and just like maybe rewatch some episodes. I think I said that at the end of the last review too, or the last part. I don't know. I just want to... I think my one big complaint about part 3, which I did already kind of allude to, is just in that I don't have any problem with this being episodic. I actually thought that the episodic nature of this was great. Exploring the different stands, going to the different regions. I thought it was really, really charming. But there were episodes that I thought were weaker than others, and about a half a dozen episodes that I think could have been just chopped, and then it would have helped the pacing a lot and helped the make the series feel more streamlined. And then those maybe we'll chop 6 episodes and then we'll add 3 to the end to just have like more Dio. Is that fine? Can I do that? Anyway, let me know what you thought about this season. Did you like part 3? Do you love Jotaro as much as I do? Do you love Dio as much as I do? I'm sad. I'm not interested in continue on part 4, but I will tonight. So, well, not tonight, but tonight, the day that this is Saturday, I'm going to start part 4. Because, like, what am I going to do? Just stay away from the series? Obviously, I'm not going to do that. If you want to chill with me, hang out with me while I do part 4, at the end of every episode, I do pop onto my Discord, my Patreon Discord, and chat about each episode aggressively. So please do feel free to join me there if you feel like it, or if you don't want to, then you can just wait until I do a video on part 4, which, you know, will probably be soon. I'll see you again soon. Bye.